Acoustimass here. Got a couple things from a garage sale free pile. We got a Bose Acoustimass subwoofer and a couple of cheap shelf system boom boxes. I always like kind of taking stuff like this apart. That's kind of how I gained a lot of my knowledge of electronics and stuff, is just ripping things apart. It's one of my favorite things to do, so that's what I'm doing here. This is an Acoustimass 5 or maybe a 10. I'm not sure what series. I'm not going to complain too much about Bose. A lot of their products are pretty overpriced. These Acoustimass subwoofers are passive, meaning they don't have an amplifier. This one conveniently does not have its back sticker. That's how I don't know whether it's an Acoustimass 5 or a 10 or a 7 or something like that. But this is a subwoofer. It came with its own little amplifier system and those little Bose Cube speakers, and you just plug the power out from the amp into the sub, and then your speakers into the back of the sub. Not really. I mean, I guess it's an okay of doing subwoofers. It just puts a lot of additional low-end load on a receiver or something if you're going to use one of these like that. And you would need a pretty decent quality one, just because it would generate a whole lot more heat because a whole lot of extra current's going to drive a subwoofer. I generally recommend powered subwoofers, just whatever brand you get. Bose has really stuck with it over the years. It's stayed in business. I used to really criticize them. You know, some of the criticisms were if it has no highs and it has no lows, then it must be Bose. But I don't really level that criticism as much anymore, because their products are generally reliable, and they've really tried to stay as American-made as they can and be competitive. They're one of the electronics companies where if you need a part for one of their units, you can usually find it, and it's a big deal. And they have a customer support number that you can actually call and get somebody who speaks intelligibly about the product. I have a couple of good friends in the electronics repair business, specifically stereo, and they say one of the reasons they're a Bose authorized repair center is just because they can get parts and get support. And that says a lot for a company. The screws, I don't know if they're actually stock, but they're kind of interesting because they're number 3 Phillips or square drive. And I think I'm just going to take this apart just to get components. I don't really have a use for a subwoofer like this. I have a powered one. And we're just going to knock this apart. That's all purpose. There's just a couple of videos on YouTube about knocking these apart, and neither one of them was in high definition, so at least we're getting that out of it. Nice long screws. Those are 2-inch long screws. And we'll just pop this back panel right off, and here it is. We've got two, well, they look like 6-inch drivers in there. I guess I've never really seen inside one of these Acoustimasses. That's not too bad. So instead of using the subwoofer technically uses a stereo signal, and instead of using 2 voice coils in the same driver, which is fine for like car stereos and home audio, there's a debate because you're trying to make one physical cone play back tones from 2 different coils. What Bose is doing here is actually has 2 separate drivers for left and right. Really isn't that bad, man. The wires are just long enough so we can do this. They're using the twist type connectors, which arguably in audio equipment are better because the wire makes all these different contacts, although there's also criticisms because they can work themselves loose over time. That's the type of wiring method where they tin the wire. Let's see if we can't zoom in a little bit here. There we go, where they tin the wire and then they wrap it around the square post, and as each time the edge of the wire hits the corner of the square post, it kind of embeds itself, and that's how they make a connection. That used to be real common on older audio equipment. Let's actually get this crossover removed from here so we can get a little better look at it from the back panel. Be careful. These 2 things that you're seeing here, whoa, let me get that a little bit more stabilized, are actually light bulbs, and that's how they do the overcurrent protection. Amplifiers, the volume gets louder as the actual voltage of the amplifier increases. That higher voltage makes it more likely for one of these light bulbs to want to start to light up, which uses up a bunch of power. And that's how they help prevent the subwoofer from getting blown out. Now if we take, it is interestingly, which is kind of nice, shows kind of the more expense in the design, is that the terminals on the back panel actually are sealed. They go through the plastic, and then that board has little sockets where it plugs into. We can also see that this back panel has a lot of heavy-duty corrugations in it. It isn't just a hollow, flimsy panel. It's actually not too bad. Let's get these little wires untwisted from here so we can take even a closer look. We can see that it was hand inspected. So to get these wires off, you just unravel them like so. And I think I've done a review, maybe I haven't. There is a special tool that wraps these, and I do have one. What's kind of interesting is that they wrap from the bottom up. So you actually start at the bottom of the peg because the little end of the wire has to disappear when you're finished. So obviously you couldn't do that if the end of the wire was at the top of the post, because it would just forever be winding. And you actually, it's kind of neat. You see the little wire disappear as you're winding these posts. And these are great. You know, this thing, I'm sure it still works. We'll take a look. I didn't even test it because I just wanted to take it apart, to tell you the truth. So there we go. Here's our crossover. Not too bad. There's our inspection date, 6/2 of 98. This is a 21-year-old subwoofer. So we have a light bulb overload protection. We have a couple sets of 5-watt resistors, a couple of capacitors, as well as, so this is going to be the low pass and the high pass. The inductor is going to do the high pass filtering, the capacitors, of course, the low pass. And we can see that they're 50 volts. So this subwoofer, I think RMS is like 75 watts or something along those lines. It's really not such a bad crossover, and it's truly just a 2 independent crossovers. Let me zoom out just a touch. I can't even control that zoom. It's 2 independent halves, left and right. And since it is power, what's interesting is there isn't really circuit board traces. They just cut out areas so they wouldn't conduct. But this entire surface area, this is what's conducting electricity versus like a normal circuit board, which is, come on camera, which just has thin little traces. Many subwoofer manufacturers still just do normal traces, and then they may layer some solder on top. But I kind of like this design because it makes it still simple and elegant, but still high current. It's pretty effective. And then we can see the inductors are actually screwed through into the PCB. Everything's glued. Really not a bad little crossover. And for the electronics aficionados, those are Nicholson capacitors, which are a premium brand. So if I'm not mistaken, this is a ported bandpass, since we have the big port on the front. A bandpass subwoofer, just as its name implies, passes particular bands. Basically, it's amplifying particular bands in sacrifice of frequency range, but it's able to boost its output because it has a narrow frequency response. And a hallmark of those is the fact that the speakers are entirely internal to the subwoofer. You can't see any of the, on a bandpass, you can't see any part of the speaker or the driver itself. This is a ported bandpass. Sometimes the drivers, they're in one compartment, and that's an entirely sealed compartment, and then the other side of the driver faces the port. In this case, it's completely ported where both compartments all end up firing out of that front port. Alright, I'm going to pull out these drivers, we'll take a look at them, and then I guess we'll be done with this teardown. The front, I think, is glued on, but I'll take a look once we get inside here, if I can get these screws out. Let me do that real fast here. Let's get these guys out of here. Oh, I probably got to... Oh, this is great. They hot glued the wires. Alright, got those drivers out. They weren't intended to be particularly serviceable, but if anybody wants to know the part numbers, there they are. Kind of a basic driver, really, just a butyl foam. The foam, actually, for 20 years, this obviously is a high-quality foam. This is notoriously disintegrates on all sorts of speakers. But it is popular because it has good audio dampening characteristics and is really lightweight and non-interfering, so that's why it's continued to be used over butyl rubber, which has actually dampens more, and they have to make it super thin. The flexible fabric type is best, but you can't get that much throw, and these things have quite a bit of throw. They're actually not too bad for little drivers, but they are just simple little drivers. But with 2 of them, you get a decent amount of bass. Anyway, I just want to do that quick teardown video. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.